Hi, Superfolk. Welcome to week 14. As I'm not going to see most of you this week, and you and I both know that you might do some work on Monday, but then you're probably not going to think about school again until maybe Saturday. Um, so I want to remind you that your research paper is due on Sunday, November 27 by 11:59 p.m. The link to submit your research paper can be found under the Research Paper tab to the left on Blackboard. You will also find a link to a short 2-question quiz, which is there to help evaluate the research paper process. Please do this short quiz immediately after you turn in your paper. Um, there is an article this week. The article is about Men in Black, and there is a discussion board. Many of you have already completed the required 10 discussion boards, and thus you are not required to complete this one. However, if you have not done 10 boards, then this is an opportunity for you to get that done. You do not have to lose those points. I will post a discussion board this week. You just need to make sure that you do it if you have not done 10. If you have done 10, feel free to take this week off. Um, like many of you, I'm going to be traveling over the holiday, and so it's probably going to be easier to reach me by text than it will be by email until I get back home on the Saturday before the research paper's due. When I get to our destination, I have better access to email, but we will be on the road for a fairly significant drive. Thus, text may be better. If you have a question and you email me and I don't get back to you immediately, I promise I'm not intentionally ignoring you. So, now, let's talk about those pesky men in black. And some of you are probably familiar with the idea of the men in black from Mr. Jones and Mr. Smith in the popular, what was it, 1990s era movie Men in Black. Had a couple of sequels. Um, or, there was a depiction of Men in Black in the X-Files episode that asked you to watch during week 13. So, the Men in Black experience and tradition, analogs with the traditional devil hypothesis, and this is by Rojewitz. Um, so, no matter what depiction you think of when you think of the Men in Black, and if you're looking at the lecture notes for this week, there's a picture of just some guys in black suits. Um, no matter what depiction of the Men in Black you're looking at, Rojewitz is talking about the ways that people have discussed experiences with the Men in Black and how those experiences are similar to the ways that people have discussed the experience of meeting the devil. Now, first, Rojewitz acknowledges that Men in Black experiences are almost exclusively shared by folks who also believe in the existence of UFOs. And while Men in Black traditions are part of UFO culture, they are also a very separate experience and should be studied as a separate experience. Men in Black should not be thought to be a natural part of a UFO story. Um, it's a separate tradition. Um, while it's helpful to have an understanding of UFO experience tradition, Men in Black should be recognized as something a little different. He also acknowledges that there are some analogs with earlier traditions of those who describe an experience of meeting the devil. All right. So he distinguishes these accounts based on those who are familiar or have heard of the tradition and those who have a first person experience with the Men in Black. All of these stories are part of the tradition, but they have different levels of involvement. He says that researchers often must gauge the informant's level of belief in the existence of Men in Black. Some people share the tradition without really believing that Men in Black exist or do the things that they're reported to do. On the other hand, people who report Men in Black experiences may not be aware of this tradition at all. And some folks who believe in Men in Black experiences may not believe that they are associated with extraterrestrial experiences. Right? So there are different levels of belief when we're talking about Men in Black stories. Rojewicz asserts the oldest MIB story is from a factory worker in Connecticut by the name of Albert K. Bender. Bender had an interest in sci fi and horror and had sent a letter to his friends saying he had learned the origin and ultimate goal of alien visitations. All right. So this was back in 1953. So a long time ago. Following the post of the letter, Bender says he was approached by three men in black suits who warned him off of continuing his UFO related activities. His friends reported that he was scared after this and ceased his activities, though he did write a book about his experiences some years later in 1962, so 9 years later. So there were reports of Men in Black appearances through the 1960s, and witnesses reported similar behaviors by the Men in Black. So number one, it's a surprise visit. The Men in Black don't make an appointment. Number two, sometimes it's one man in black, or it could be a pair, but it's usually three. Number three, they appear at the home or place of employment of the UFO witness or investigator, often before the witness has reported the experience, the UFO experience, or before the investigator has even had a UFO experience. Number four, the Men in Black know more about the witness or investigator than an average stranger could possibly know. Thus, they have this kind of omniscient air. They know everything. Number five, they favor large black Cadillacs or large sedans. They typically drive sometimes exaggeratedly large cars. And if you think about the scene with the Men in Black in the X-Files episode, and think about the type of car that they were driving and how out of place it kind of seemed in that episode, it was kind of this exaggeratedly long black sedan that did really precise driving maneuvers. So number six is that they are typically seen in black suits, which are often ill-fitting or soiled, or they're extremely neat and pressed, like abnormally so. Number seven, sometimes they're reported to act kind of silly, but most often they are considered threatening, even when their behavior is bizarre. And if you think back to that X-Files episode, one of the points that the character of Mulder makes when he's talking to the Men in Black is that, you guys purposefully act weird so that when people tell the story of meeting you, they're thought to be crazy. Like, I'm paraphrasing that, but that's kind of how that goes. So their behavior is usually very strange, and it's often threatening. Like, if you think about those Men in Black characters, that Jesse Ventura character, he's a former wrestler, so he's a large man, and the way that he talked was very, very kind of threatening and distinct. So, Men in Black are sometimes reported to move in strange ways. Jerking, gliding, rocking, weaving have all been reported. And the inability to complete mundane tasks like punching buttons or opening doors suggests that they are somewhat unfamiliar with these items, or they don't use them every day. The Men in Black often have distinctive ways of speaking. They may be described as a monotone, as sing-song, whining, or resonant. The voice or manner of the speaking is reportedly distinctive. All right. And number 10, the hair is often described as odd. They may lack hair entirely, or their hair growth may be uneven, or it may appear that they're wearing a wig or a hairpiece of some kind. And so those are all usually features of a Men in Black story. So several first-person accounts are recounted by Rojewicz in this article, and most of those use pseudonyms. All right. So these accounts include accounts from students, an associate professor, a physician, and a journalist. Some of these folks complied with the Men in Black's request to destroy their records and cease their investigations, but others just also reported the Men in Black experience as part of the UFO experience more broadly. So a couple of interesting things that Rojewitz also discusses is the association of the Men in Black with Jewishness. He reports that in post-World War II society, because of their associations with fascist fringe groups, some of those who reported contact with UFOs or MIB claimed that UFOs or MIB were associated with Jews. And that was because of a pretty strong anti-Semitic climate at the time. He also points out that these views were not really an acceptable position in the UFO community, and most investigators felt that the U.S. Air Force or some other governmental body was responsible for the organization of Men in Black. But if we're talking about functionalism here, we can learn a few things. Number one, anti-Semitism was still pretty widespread in the 1950s and 60s. Even after World War II and people's horror about Hitler's final solution. However, most people didn't embrace this explanation for the MIB, and instead, number two, the government was associated with the intimidation of the MIB, even roughing up or killing certain investigators, which speaks to the general mistrust of government and the belief that there are those in authority who would misuse their power or lie to the public rather than serve the public good. So this particular belief manifests itself in a variety of ways. And if you think back to the X-Files, I think the entire show basically was an exhibit of this kind of mistrust of government and this belief that politicians and those in authority, the industrial military complex, uses its power to deceive the public or lie to them, misuse them, just for their own purposes. So Rojewitz also associates the reports of the MIB with earlier reports of appearances of the devil. So this is where his article gets a little general and I get a little iffy on it. But he says that the use of the color black. The devil has been reported to also wear black, have black skin, and have a monstrous form. If you think back to your literature classes, if you read The Devil and Tom Walker, that story talks about the devil's skin being blackened. If you're a Stephen King fan and you've read his short story, The Man in the Black Suit, in that story you have a man coming out of the wilderness in an extremely pressed, out of context black suit, although he otherwise looks fairly normal. So this color black, he says, is an association with appearances of the devil. The devil is also reported to move in strange ways and fail to comprehend or accomplish simple tasks. Apparently they don't have buttons and doors in hell. Number three, people report feeling fear after an encounter with the Men in Black. And people also report feeling fear after an encounter with the devil. That one's a little sketchy to me. People also report fear after seeing a ghost. People also report fear after a car accident. So that one's a little bit sketchy. People report fear after a lot of things happen. Number four, the devil possesses information that would be deeply personal and not known to others. And Men in Black are often reported to be in possession of materials they should not have or know things they should not know. And this is often attributed to surveillance rather than any psychic ability. Um, Number 5, people most often report UFO experiences on a Wednesday or Saturday. And these 2 days are significant as being dangerous to go places because demons might be present. All right. And number 6, the devil is often associated with an army of cohorts or legions of demons, in the same way that the men in black are associated with the military, particularly the Air Force. Um, and that's a bit of folklore that you see play out a lot in the X-Files, typically when the military is depicted as being part of some type of UFO cover-up. It's usually the branch of the military is usually the Air Force. He also, number 7, Rojewitz also associates the Men in Black with the devil using the discussion of Jansma, who kind of says that UFOs in general are of demonic origin. So another thing that Rojewitz does here that I think is a little bit interesting, and certainly folkloric, is that he relates the Men in Black to tulpas. Now, if you don't know what a tulpa is, that's a little piece of Tibetan folklore, and it's a thought form, all right? And so typically tulpas are, so there's the idea that something that is imagined and thought about can be manifested into a physical form. So if you think about a creature and believe in a creature, you could bring that creature into being, would kind of be the association with a tulpa there. So tulpas have analogs in many cultures, and some people would say that, and some people do say that that is what Slender Man is. That, Slender Man was originally an idea, a fictional character that was created on the internet, but as he grew in popularity and his legend grew, that he was actually thought into being in some way. But Rojewitz here doesn't really go into detail about who would have brought the Men in Black into physical form or how the Men in Black fit into the tulpa tradition. And so I think that part's a little tricky and not well explained in this particular article, although I do think that the idea of tulpas is particularly interesting. I don't think that it's well related here. And would probably be more at home in discussions of other creatures and not necessarily the Men in Black. So, in the discussion board for this week, I'm going to ask you to kind of evaluate Rojewitz's association with the devil figure and, in the MIB. In this article. As I said, there are some things about this article that are really, really interesting. I think the way that he breaks down Men in Black experiences and the way that he discusses those as something that's related to but also separate from UFO tradition is interesting. But I'm a little bit more sketchy about this association with the devil bit. It seems very general. And not exactly well supported, we'll say. So I think this is a good article for you to read as you come up to your research paper, and you're looking at ways that you're tying ideas together. You want to make sure the way you tie those ideas together is well supported, and I think Rojewitz fell down a little bit here, although I do think that the first part of the article about the Men in Black is absolutely very interesting. The last part about analogs with the devil is a little sketchier to me. So I will be interested to see what you have to say about this on the discussion board, and I hope that you have a wonderful Thanksgiving week. Take some time off to rest, relax, eat good food, hang out with your friends and family, if that's what your tradition is, and very much enjoy this little break from school, but please get your research paper done. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks.